Good evening, Bolanle.
Oh, great. Good evening.
Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to the Account Solution, Ask the Accountants. I'm always thrilled to be here and to do this every time. The Account Solution is an ever-evolving educational platform dedicating to providing practical answers to contemporary accounting challenges. It brings together accounting professionals from various industries and career stages, creating a vibrant community where experienced accountants generously share their insight and mentor aspiring professionals. With a track record of over 5 years, this platform has significantly contributed to the career advancement of countless accountants. Today is Tax Clinic, and it's usually going to, previous editions have been always engaging and really interesting. Today we have a professional, Mr. Onwuka Okoro-Uwara. He's a professional accountant and tax practitioner with an in-depth knowledge in tax and fiscal management, audit and assurance services, management, consulting, accounting advisory, and financial management. Mr. Onwuka is a graduate of accounting. He holds master's degree in finance and banking from the University of Port Harcourt. He's an associate member of both the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICANN, as well as the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, CITN. He's also a fellow Institute of Management Consultant, FIMC, an associate member of the Institute of Strategic Management, Nigeria. He's also a member of Nigerian Institute of Management, NIM. He was a manager in charge of audit and assurance services in David Olemene & Co. Chartered Accountants for over a decade. Presently, he's the managing partner of Onwuka Okoro & Co., a firm of chartered accountants and practitioners. He is happily married and blessed with a baby boy. He's not going to be doing this alone. He's going to be discussing with our visionary, Mr. Omar, who needs no further introduction. So straight away, I'm going to turn this meeting over to Mr. Onuka and Mr. Omar Ben. In the course of the meeting, please feel free to drop your comments and raise your hand if you need to actually speak. All right, over to you, sir.
Good evening, Bolanle. Thanks for the introductions, and good evening, Onuka. Let me know if your mic is on, if you can hear us.
Can you hear me now? Good
Yes,
evening.
we can hear you. Can hear you. Thank you. Okay, so thank you everyone for coming. And the approach we'll take tonight is basically to hear expert opinions. And it's not just Mr. Onka that will be discussing. If you have contributions, experience, the idea of this platform is to enable people have an opportunity to express themselves, share experiences. I'll give you a typical instance that happened over last week. So a client of mine called me and said he went to the tax office. I even shared this with someone last week, and we had a talk on this issue. And he went to file a letter for compliance. He just started a real estate company and said to go file for compliance because they told him if he does not come to file for for commencement, they will have problem. So he went there and they told him, okay, he wrote the letter that he has commenced business. And they said, okay, that since he's into real estate, each time he sells a piece of land, even if the land is 4 million and the land subscriber is paying part payment, what they call pay small, that any amount that the land subscriber pay, let's say a 500,000 naira deposit, that is supposed to come and pay VAT of 7.1% to FIRS and find that VAT. So you will pay VAT on the 4 million, not on the 500,000 naira. And I said, and he was panicking and scared and preparing to start remitting VAT. He made his first 2 sales last week or so. And I said, first of all, there are 2 issues here. And I called Onwuka the same day and spoke with him on the same issue. I said, the first issue here is that you are not even in the threshold to administer VAT. That the Finance Act has helped the SMEs, and SMEs has a threshold of definition, which basically means a 5 million naira threshold. You can't even start filing VAT now. That's 1. 2, also based on the Finance Act and elaborate explanations of exempted items, zero-rated items, that there is no VAT on land sales, first of all, So, but he has gone ahead and is panicking. That's why I told people the amount of money you would think you want to pay a tax consultant is very small compared to the loss you will get if you are not informed. And so take advantage of consultants in the house and leverage on them, their expertise. You can have an agreement with them. Okay, what will be your fee, your advisory fee? At SME levels, we take advisory, very insignificant. But at big companies, they pay for advisory roles. They hire consultants, go for a retreat, spend time, brainstorm, discuss, plan. But SMEs don't do that. Even at the point of starting their business, they don't even see the reason to plan taxes, plan finances, plan accounting, and it's very important that they do that. So Tax Clinic is an opportunity for us to share experiences. Don't just hide behind your experience and say, anyway, I've done that, it was sorted out. No, you could have done something wrong or something better than what we're even doing, and we'll learn from you. So it's not just Uncle that we're speaking. Anyone that has idea, what to say, just ask and just raise your hand or you drop on the chat box. Bolande will call you. Even on Facebook as well, chat on Facebook. People are watching on Facebook. They will take your questions and they'll be addressed as well. Question experiences and they'll be addressed. So we're having a conversation. It won't be a lecture. Nobody knows it all. It won't be a seminar or a class. It's just a conversation. So at any point in time, Okoko, you feel at the misfire, you can chip in, you feel a particular case concerns you or you've experienced that issue, you can chip in. Can also call you to hear your opinion, what you think about it, So that's just basically how we'll go tonight. And we're looking at FIRS guidelines that were released just recently. It was signed 9th of October, and the guidelines basically are to provide clarity regarding the nature and extent of inquiries relating to one, tax examinations, tax audits, tax investigation exercises, other special or tax inquiry processes. And this is very important. I think FIRS has done well in issuing this guideline because recently a friend of mine, a colleague, had a client who just feels that the FIRS are just pressurizing him too much, his business too much, input, and they received a tax exercise or dex audit exercise for VAT and withholding tax. The same time they received a tax audit letter. So we were like, what is this? As in at the same time. So we are like, these are two different things entirely. They have the right to do dex audits for your VAT compliance, and at the same time they have the right to audit your business tax audit. So I think it's coming at the right time so people can understand the differences and at what time, it can happen. And the key objectives of the guidelines are to clarify the nature, the scope of the various tax compliance activities and eliminate, potential conflicts that could arise between revenue officers. The truth is that some of these officers don't even know their own act. I had to share one of the circulars issued in 2021 to my client. I said, look, share this thing with, if you go back to the FIRS office in Port Harcourt, share this with them. Tell them this is your own circular issued to so date. This is page 4 discusses the issue of land and VAT, and even another circular on threshold of who is to, administer for VAT, So sometimes you don't even know those of their own guidelines. They're not even well, trained to manage those things. So it's important to understand, what's going on and leverage on them. They have their website and they upload all their circulars there. You can just go and do some research. Don't just believe what a taxman tells you at the office. Do your research and be sure that you are good to go. All right. So the compliance or inquiry areas include DEX review and monitoring exercises, tax audits, special tax crimes investigation. I remember in one of my former companies, I was working as an accountant. They came for 4 years tax audit. In the midst of the audit by the medium tax office, then at Stadium Road, then Stadium Road, they now sent another letter from Abuja for investigation. They had to suspend the tax audit. So now going to the investigation on the under higher team. Then I don't know what happens right now. So these are different inquiries that could go in based depending on the triggers. Something that can trigger a particular audit compliance issue to happen in your organization. So let's start from the first one, dex examination and monitoring exercises. The slides are very scanty because I don't want to load the slide with information. The PDF file will be shared on the WhatsApp group. You can have access to it. So this examination can be carried out by officers in the returns payment processes unit, that's the RPP unit of tax offices. Why monitoring exercises can be carried out by the GPTO, which is the government business tax offices, and the withholding tax and VAT dex offices in tax office. So they have different units that could be carried out, first of all, dex examination and the exercises. And these things are limited to the current year operations, right? So if the government business tax office is trying to review or work within review the compliance level of the current year, they can decide to carry out, a dex examination and monitoring exercises to different organizations that they provide, to be sure that they complied to it. And they are limited to the current year tax returns. So that is underlined, current year tax returns. Meaning that it's only when you do your tax return That's my own argument. Don't say, unquote, don't say what I said. My interpretation is that when you cannot just send me a letter asking me for a desk review when I've not filed the returns for the current year. Okoro will explain better if he has contrary opinion. So it is based on the current year tax returns. It's what they wrote in the circular, and it's aimed to ensure completeness, arithmetical accuracy, and obvious misapplication of tax laws, right? So the tax consultant may have used a lacuna in the law to do a treatment, or may have done something wrongly, especially all these accountants we have everywhere. And the tax man wants to check if these things have been done well, if this compliance have been done well. Do you understand? So that is very important. So it's very important to understand all these things. Now, however, where a taxpayer files tax returns of more than 1 year, all the returns may be examined or monitored. So that the cases where somebody has not done tax filing for 5 years or 2 years, as the case may be, and decide to file all at once, the guideline is saying that the tax offices, that the RPP unit or the GPTO unit, they have the right to, examine all the relevant years that you filed your returns. So you need to note that one as well. It's very important you note it. Okay, so basically, the circular is saying that it must be limited to issues as ensuring balances brought forward are reconciled with balances carried forward, checking correctness of tax computations, losses, capital allowances, minimum tax computation for accuracy, as well as imposing penalties for late filing of returns where necessary. It's also required to convert dormant cases into live cases. So if there are cases that have been at the preview of FIRS unit and have been dormant for a while, or the tax audit division had carried an audit and did not conclude that audit, it's also a time for FIRS to activate those cases and make it live again. Now, in all this, it does not involve visit to taxpayer's office or request for such documents regarding revenue or venture items. I tell this again because this is very important now. So this does not involve visits to taxpayer's office or request for source documents regarding revenue or expenditure items. Does not involve visit to taxpayer's office. That means I don't have to go to taxpayer's office to the company. As if I'm the FIRS man, I shouldn't go to the taxpayer's office, or request for source documents regarding revenue or expenditure items. However, fundamental documents as certificate of imported capital or ministerial approval or amendment fee, evidence of tax payments, filing may be demanded. So this is where I want the tax expert to come in. There are times when they will send mail and said, send us supporting documents for your cost of sales. What have you lumped in cost of sales? Send us schedules, send us documents for items in cost of sales. FIRS is saying here that this DEX examination does not involve the tax officials going to the taxpayer's office or requesting for source documents regarding revenue or expense items. But they could ask for certificate of imported capital, not imported goods now, imported capital or ministerial approval on management fee. Evidence of tax payment or evidence of tax filing may be demanded. I'll pause here and hear reactions from Okoro, from Onka, and see if other people have reactions as well, based on this DEX audit. And he can come from an angle of his experiences, and what he thinks, his opinion as well on the issue. Over to you, Onka, on the floor.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Omar has done a summary look at the guideline issued by the FIRS. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, fine. Now, before I'll go into the practical aspect of it, I would like to lay a small foundation for this particular issue. Now, I sincerely believe that we all understand how FIRS operates. FIRS is an agency of government saddled with the responsibility of administering, assessment, and collection of all taxes due to the federal government in line with the provisions of enabling laws and in compliance with acts establishing it, and to account for all taxes collected. Now, to achieve this, FIRS usually carry out compliance activities at various levels to guarantee complete and accurate reporting of information by taxpayers in their tax returns. As we all know, currently Nigeria is operating what we call self-assessment regime. What it means is this, that a taxpayer can stay at the comfort of his office and prepare his returns, tax returns, submits them to the relevant authority, which in this case is the FIRS, and pays the necessary taxes due. Now, it doesn't stop at that. At some point, FIRS will come up to actually check if what the taxpayer has done is correct within what the law provides. Now, and one of those actions normally taken by FIRS is the desk review, which Omar has clearly mentioned here, or desk examination. Okay, once you submit your account, for instance, before you get back to your office, you are already accompanying with a letter for review, which is the desk examination, reviewing your current year returns. The essence of the review is to ensure that as a taxpayer, you have done what is expected of you as a taxpayer to do within what the tax law provides. That is to say that you have done your tax return properly, you've accounted for all your income and all your expenses, your tax computation is correct, your income tax computation is correct, your capital allowance computation is correct, your losses brought forward, they are okay, everything is done correctly. That is the essence. Now, Omar raised the issue of whether the tax officers within the tax and payment processing units have the right to request for documents. Now, that is where the experience comes in here. Now, we've had cases whereby the officials within the FIRS will just come up and then issue a review letter, and then they can go as far as not even asking for documentary evidence of some of the expenses in the account, but can go as far as telling you that your direct cost, for example, they are reviewing your direct costs. And then most times they will quote a section of the law that most times when you look at that section, it doesn't add up. Like most times they will add, they will think that whatever they are doing is in line with section 65 of CETA. So, but if you go to section 65, section 65 did not say that FIRS can adjust a company's direct cost to a particular percentage. I don't know if any of us here have gotten such a letter. Maybe you prepare your account and then they look at your direct cost and they will tell you that, oh, based on our assessment of the industry in which you operate, hello, can you still hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. We can hear you. Go ahead. Although you are
Hello?
breaking it, we can hear you. Although you are breaking.
Okay, so all right, this network, but you can hear me now?
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay, so a letter, like this is a practical experience. A letter I got that a direct cost of a client account filed by a client, that the direct cost is high, and they are reviewing the direct cost downwards to about 60%. So I was shocked. I said, no, that's not what the tax law provides. Even the section 65 did not say that. Okay. Now, the section of the tax law, if you look at section 24 is talking about allowable deductions. What did it say? It says that as long as the cost incurred is wholly, reasonably, exclusively, and necessarily incurred for the purpose of that business, that such cost must be allowable cost. So, and I have written such letters several times, and I never got response again based on that particular issue. So now, on the scope of DEX examination, now it is limited to the current year accounts or current year tax return, where a taxpayer files just one return. Like you mentioned before, where a taxpayer files many returns at the same time, nothing stops FIRS from reviewing such returns. Okay. Now, like I said again, that the essence of DEX review, like you have mentioned, is to ensure that the return is complete, then it is accurate, and there is no misapplication of any tax law. I can also mention another example. That was before, okay, after the immediately after tax promise was introduced. Now, what happened is that once you drop account on tax promise, now it calculates the taxes for you, but the tax promise will not calculate, as at then, will not calculate the police trust fund levy and the Naseni levy. The reason being that most companies, the tax promise will not easily identify the industry in which a particular client operates. For example, the Naseni is not applicable to all companies. Okay, so what happened is that we immediately after the return was submitted, we got a letter from FIRS for just the same DEX examination, raising additional liabilities. So we knew that indeed the assessment was right, because the tax promise failed to compute the Naseni. So we wrote to them that we are aware, just because the tax promise did not compute Naseni, that's why we couldn't pay, because before you make payment on tax promise, there must be an assessment. So we quickly, but other issues raised like all this issue of submit these documents, submit this bank statement, because at that point of DEX review, the officer in charge is not expected to request for bank statement of a taxpayer at that point, because it is not a tax audit. It is simply a review of account file, whether the tax computation is correct, whether the returns have been fully declared, whether the taxpayer has paid the necessary taxes, and whether the capital allowances are in order, all other computations are in order, other restrictions to capital allowances are in order. That is the essence of the review. That is why that guideline was issued out, at least to guide not only the tax officials, also to educate the taxpayers on what's expected of them. Now, that is examination, that is DEX examination. Now, the next level of inquiry is what to call a tax audit. Now, like I said, that since we operate a tax self-assessment regime, now there is a trust given to the taxpayer by the tax authority as to declare correctly tax returns and then make appropriate taxes. That is why at some point a tax authority will now notify the taxpayer of their intention to carry out an audit. An audit is just like a routine exercise carried out to ascertain whether the taxpayer has complied fully with the provisions of the law, and whether the taxpayer has also paid the necessary taxes it's expected to pay. That is the essence of the audit. So audit is not to witch hunt a taxpayer. That is not the essence of audit. Audit is to ensure that the taxpayer has complied fully with the provisions of the law, and whether the taxpayer has also paid the necessary taxes it's expected to pay. That is the essence of the audit. So audit is not to witch hunt a taxpayer. That is not the essence of audit. That is the essence of audit. That is not Audit is just to check, it's just a routine check whether the taxpayer has complied fully. And then let me just take you through the tax audit process. Now, the tax audit process starts by risk profiling, whereby a tax file of a taxpayer is just selected by a tax authority, and of course, a letter. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? Okay. So, and a letter is sent to the taxpayer. Now, normally, a tax audit is not expected to exceed 6 years. So where it exceeds 6 years, we will call it statute bad because it cannot go beyond 6 years. And that is one of the differences between the tax audit and investigation, because investigation can actually go beyond 6 years. So when a taxpayer receives a letter from the tax authority for an audit, normally a date is stated on that letter, and also information to be provided are clearly stated on the letter, on the tax audit letter. Now, the truth of the matter is that in practice, whereby the taxpayer accepts that date, it may not, if it doesn't want, it may not communicate to the tax authority. What it will do is to go back home and prepare for the audit. But where the date is not convenient for the taxpayer, a taxpayer has the right to write to the tax authority to either reschedule that audit, either for a future, for one reason or the other. So ordinarily, you're supposed to make a letter to the tax authority to notify them that that particular date is not okay with you, so you can change another date. So if that's accepted, now there will be what we call pre-audit meeting. Pre-audit meeting will is a kind of meeting arranged between the taxpayer and the tax authority most times at the premises of the taxpayer. So, and in that meeting, it's expected that the tax consultant of the company should be at the meeting. Now, the essence of that meeting is to explain to the taxpayer why the tax authority came for the audit, and also to get background information about the company, because you cannot audit a company you don't even know anything about, right? Because if you understand the industry in which a company operates, so that you'll be able to know how the income are recognized, how the expenses are also recognized. For example, if you have a company that's into say travel business, now every inflow into the company's account is not revenue as a travel consultant. So you need to understand the industry in which a client operates. Or if a company or a client is a labor management company, you need to understand the actual nature of the business, because not all inflow into the account represents revenue. So if there is commission, so that commission is the only revenue of the company and not the entire inflow into the bank statement. So that is why at that meeting, you'll be able to explain to the tax authority what you do as a company, how you recognize your revenue as a company, and how you recognize your cost also as a company. So it's very important. So other background information about the company will be collated at the pre-audit meeting. So immediately after the pre-audit meeting, the next thing is the normal field exercise. So the field exercise will be for a taxpayer to now provide all the information requested by the tax authority. Now, after which they retire back to their office to do the remaining work and then release what we call the interim report. So the interim report is also issued to the taxpayer to actually come for reconciliation. Of course, there are information, maybe a taxpayer is unable to provide. At that point, a taxpayer is expected to provide such information, or if there are documents that the taxpayer is unable to provide, will be able to gather those information, and then send back to the tax authority, and then for reconciliation. So it's expected that all the document representation that the taxpayer is expected to make should get to the tax office maybe 2 days before the reconciliation meeting date, so that it will enable them to review the letter from the taxpayer before that meeting day. So that is it. Then
We might have lost Okoro. Can anyone hear me? Those that can unmute, can you hear me?
At the meeting, at the reconciliation meeting against FIRS, so you're able to against all the expenses in the account are allowable expenses. How does it prove that? Now you can prove that by substantiating it in terms of bringing third-party documents to actually back up your claim, because reconciliation is not hearsay. Reconciliation is your ability to back up the figures you have reported in your tax returns with documents. So for many of us that are here, you really need to emphasize in your various companies or in your various undertakings, you need to really emphasize on documentation. Very, very important. Because at that point, if you are not able to substantiate any cost, you will be at the mercy of the tax officials. So documentation is very important. And then again, reclassification of items is also very important. All right, there are some words you're not supposed, as an accountant, as a tax person, there are some words you're not supposed to use. Because once you use those words, FIRS will capitalize on that and maybe disallow some of those expenses. So tax authority, as much tax as possible, as little as possible. So the essence of the consultant here is to be able to balance the two, that the tax authority collects what is supposed to collect and the taxpayer pays exactly what is supposed to pay. So that is the essence. So on the part of the taxpayer, it's expected that you're able to do proper documentation. It will not sound nice that you go for an audit and you are not able to prove your revenue. Very bad. You are subjected to a tax audit, and as a taxpayer, you can't prove your revenue. You can't substantiate your cost. It's very painful in some of the tax audits that have been carried out. You see where a taxpayer is battling to defend a revenue that is not supposed to be a problem, a cost that is not supposed to be a problem. Why? Because there are no documentary evidences. So these are the issues. So whereby you have documents to back up your claims, there won't be issues. There won't be issues. So it's only when you are not able to substantiate some of your revenue, some of your costs, and then your revenues, you can't even tell the officials how you arrive at the revenue. That's most times you'll be at the mercy of the tax authority. So immediately after the reconciliation meeting, you're able to make your presentation, you're able to defend your figures. Then the next thing will be the intent letter, which is the final report. The intent letter will now be issued to the taxpayer, explaining the position of the tax authority. So at that point, it's either the taxpayer accepts the position of the tax authority or rejects that same position. Because even though you have intent letter, it doesn't mean that it is still final and conclusive until a taxpayer has accepted that position. So if as a taxpayer you accept the position, that is final and conclusive. But whereby a taxpayer fails to accept that position, then it can still revert to the tax authority to amend that assessment, either based on other information to be provided or for whatever reason. So a tax authority also has the right to amend the assessment or refuse to amend the assessment. So whereby the tax authority accepts the position of the taxpayer, it can amend that assessment, even though it has issued letter of intent, because I have had such experience. So at that point, if the tax authority accepts the position of the taxpayer, it can amend the assessment. But whereby it fails to accept the position of the taxpayer, it may send another letter, which is called refusal to amend the assessment to the taxpayer. Now, again, the taxpayer may also accept that refusal to amend or to reject. Whereas taxpayer accepts the letter of refusal to amend the assessment, it becomes final and conclusive. But whereby it fails to accept that letter, then it now becomes a topic for litigation. Now, at that point, a taxpayer can approach the tax appeal tribunal. These are the reasons why you see some of the cases in the tax appeal tribunal, because it had gone through all these processes. And then tax authority refuses to accept the position of the taxpayer, and the taxpayer refuses to accept the position of the tax authority. And then it will end up at the tax appeal tribunal, where the matter will be adjudged. So from tax appeal tribunal, of course, the matter moves from appeal court to, can even get to Supreme Court, depending on how the matter is handled. So this is just the procedure for an audit. Again, the investigation also follows the same pattern. It's just that the investigation is more stringent than the audit. Why? Because investigation can go beyond 6 years, like I mentioned before. An investigation is kind of policing the taxpayer. An investigation can go beyond the taxpayers, just the normal taxpayers' account, and can even encroach into the owners of the business. Maybe looking at the statement, the bank statement of the owners of the business. So that is why most times nobody wants to go into that investigation, because it's more encompassing than the normal audit. Again, there is something I want to explain. There is nothing that stops, the tax review does not in any way stop tax audits. Just like this tax audit does not in any way stop tax investigation. But whereby investigation comes before the review and the audit, both the review and the audit will just fizzle away. So that will show you how the trend or the position of the tax investigation compared to the tax audit and then the tax review. So like I mentioned before, that most times the tax investigation is triggered by so many issues. Maybe where there are suspected cases of fraud or tax evasion, then investigation may come up. Let me give you one example. I think in last two years we had a case of tax investigation. How did it happen? Now, it was during the course of our reconciliation that the head of investigation team told us how the company was, how he got information to investigate the company. What happened is that he said he was driving home one evening, and he received a text message from Abuja to investigate this particular company. Now, what happened is that there were several inflows into the company's account. That's his bank statement. But when you look at the tax compliance, it wasn't that much compared to the level of inflows. And then most times, when FIRS does data mining, it actually captures almost the inflows into the company's statements. But it's only when you come to field to understand exactly what the company do, that is when you're able to appreciate maybe the level of tax compliance by the company. Like I mentioned before, a company that is into labor management, now you definitely will see some level of inflow into the account, but does not mean that the whole inflow belongs to the company. Now, if the company charges, for example, a commission or admin charge, now it's only that portion of the admin charge is actually the company's revenue. The whole of the bulk of the revenue, the bulk of the inflow goes back as a cost in terms of labor payment and all that. So it's only when you come to understand the nature of the taxpayer's business that you'll be able to appreciate the level of tax compliance by the taxpayer. So apart from the tax investigation, there are other special tax crime investigation that FIRS can also carry out. Now, I also have this one on that audit called NFIU audit. I don't know if anybody has heard that before. NFIU audit. Now, the NFIU audit is more like a special tax investigation, because I had a client, I think they applied for marginal field license. So after the application, I think weeks after the application, they got a letter from the FIRS for a review, for investigate, for the audits rather. It's more like audit. So the essence is it's like to know their level of compliance. So that audit was carried out, and at the end of the day, they were able to report back to the NFIU. So it's more like intelligence report from the NFIU to tax authority to examine a particular client. So in all, there are triggers for tax investigation. Now, one of them is where you have a failed audit. Now, when you have a failed tax audit, investigation can take over from there and then carry out the exercise. Then also there are cases that may be referred to the tax audit, tax investigation department by the same tax audit. Maybe when you have a stubborn taxpayer who end up abandoning the normal tax audit. So what they do is to refer such case to investigation to carry out. There are also issues of where a taxpayer has inconsistent financial statements. Then maybe whereby maybe some companies you have maybe one or two financials, one for tax, one for this, one for that, and at the end of the day, you may mistakenly give out one in place of the other, and it becomes a problem for a taxpayer. So that is why it's good as a taxpayer, you try to streamline your activity. The issue of one account, two accounts for different purposes shouldn't arise in any way. So these are some of the issues. There are other issues, not just restricted to the ones we just mentioned here. There are other issues that may bring about tax investigation, like whereby you have a referral from the tax office of a taxpayer. Now you have a controller referring a particular case to the investigation. Maybe a particular company is always giving issues, showing low level of compliance or not even complying at all. So such case, the controller in that office may refer such matter to investigation to actually look at the activity of that taxpayer. Again, where there is resistance to tax audit exercise, maybe a tax audit department has written to a taxpayer and the taxpayer is not able to comply with the letter, then such case may be referred to investigation. So like I said before, investigation is more strict than the audit, because investigation can go any length to obtain information of a taxpayer, unlike that of a tax audit. So in all, for a company to actually go through all this verification, all this inquiry and come out successful, it depends on several things. And one of those things is this: a taxpayer should be able to ensure proper documentation of his or her tax activities. Very, very important. Very, very important. Not only having your bank statement is not all. There are made in your account. Those must be properly. It's not like I know document, but those that require third-party document must be provided. Like for example, there is no way you tell me you pay a certain amount of money to a third party without requesting for either a receipt or an invoice from the third party. I don't think it's possible. So these are the issues, because when you are trying to defend a taxpayer, you must defend a taxpayer in line with what the law provides, because this one is all about law. Taxation is all about law. For you to prove that a particular expense is wholly and reasonably, exclusively incurred, such expense, you must have documentation. There must be documentation for such expenses. So it's not oral evidence, because oral evidence most times are not accepted. But once you are able to provide documentary evidence of some of those expenses, you're able to sketch through in some of these investigation. Like currently, there is VAT and withholding tax monitoring exercise going on. Now, it's not an audit. It's not an audit. It's a kind of verification. It's not like a proper audit. It's not a full-scale audit. It's just tailored to only VAT and withholding tax alone. It's not a full-scale audit. That is why, if you look at the letter, they will tell you that this particular exercise does not stop full-scale audit. But the report from the VAT and withholding tax exercise will be incorporated whenever there is an audit. So it's very important. It's very important. So that is why always document the report from this VAT and withholding tax monitoring exercise going on, so that whenever you have audit, you're able to provide that report to be incorporated into the tax audit report. Very important, because most times some people may not remember that there was withholding tax or VAT monitoring exercise some time ago, and when there is audit, they won't be able to provide those documents to actually to be incorporated into the tax audit report. So that is very, very important.
Okay,
so
thank you.
At this point, I don't know if anybody has.
Yeah, so thank you,
question.
Onka. Thank you very much. And like I said beginning of the session that in fact I was chatting with Madam Unix this evening on Zoom here, and I said I just left and woke up part 7, as in trying to prepare for today. And you know, where you started talking, I didn't want to stop you because the approach you took actually was made it possible for us to cover everything. Because when we started this thing, I realized that we may not be able to cover, you know, the whole section, as in the 3 special tax inquiry today. But that's why I didn't stop you. You know, if we start having a conversation, you know, argument back and forth, maybe we'd have just dwelt on monitoring and desk audit. So I'm trying to see because for November we have 2 topics in November, and the speakers have not confirmed their dates yet. We have a topic for cybercrime, email fraud, and prevention of cyber crimes, as in for companies and our emails. So the IT guy is supposed to confirm the date, but he's not getting back to me. We also have 2 sessions in November on cybercrime, but he's thinking of doing just 1 session to cover both. So they cover both topics, one on cyber crimes and one on email frauds. Then we'll have a topic on HR. HR lady has not confirmed the date yet in November. So I'm thinking, because it's already 9 o'clock, I'm thinking if we continue this task clinic next week, Sunday, so that we cannot have that conversation. Because the approach that happened today was more like an overview of all that happens and your experiences you shared, which are very valuable and are very relatable. You know, there's a current case going on, which you may be even aware of, that we are trying to get some support documents for a particular transaction, which had been posted to the expenses of the company, but the FIRS is saying they can't substantiate those transactions. And my man is trying to say this is solely, exclusively, wholly for the company, but there are no proper documentations. And So we needed to have this conversation on how people can, do some things, some basic things that will make things easy for them. So I don't know if we'll do a vote, by raise of hands. Should we continue Task Clinic next week, Sunday? Where, in fact, we didn't even look at the guidelines again that they issued, because Mr. Onka was just on fire tonight and has touched different areas that we need to really sit down, think about it, ask questions. So I don't know. I don't want to react to the question, the topic. So somebody said, yes, it's fine by me. Can I have more responses? Should we continue Task Clinic next Sunday? So I will now have time, since he has, dive into all the areas, monitoring and let's audit and monitoring, task audit, investigations, all those things. He has discussed them in detail. It's a very good summary. Can we now have a conversation, where he won't just talk throughout, he will talk, somebody will talk, somebody will say something, share experience, somebody will argue, fight, we just keep talking, and before we know it, 1 hour has gone. So I'm seeing a lot of yes. So please do us a favor. I want to ask the admin to type the email address. Please, for what has happened today, can you send your questions to an email? Your question, we'll have an order list on the next week. We'll put them in a slide. We'll put the questions in the slide. Even put your name if you want. Can you send us an email of all your questions from tonight's discussion? We have just 3 minutes to go. The meeting is on Facebook. You can go on Facebook and see it again, this recording, because Onka has mentioned so many times. I just told my wife now that, in fact, I've lost a lot of things I used to know in tax, because I've changed industry somehow. I'm not fully in practice, so, and because he has touched so many things that if you're not in practice, you can't know those things, you can't experience those things. And next Sunday, we'll have Mrs. Bernard moderate, to support Bolanle in moderation. Next Sunday, she will moderate because she's into tax practice. So let's have the tax guys do their thing. Me, I will step back. I'll just present the slides. I will use the first 10 minutes next week to talk about the guidelines. So I will finish the guidelines. They will not step back and allow the tax guys, do their thing. I hope to bring in Celestina. She's very busy today. She couldn't join. So I will have a conversation of different experiences. Somebody in tax, somebody in audit, and somebody in legal, tax practice. I think that will be fine. But to end today, so your questions, please. I don't know if Angel is here. Drop the email address on this Zoom chat and on WhatsApp chat and on Facebook. Please send in your questions from today's discussion, from different things that Onka has touched today. Send in your questions to those emails. I know I'm saying that, so that we can have them also help us to prepare well for you. It's not good you come for a task clinic and we can't answer your questions that day. Let me tell you the truth, we're not all knowing, right? Things come up. Like, for example, Vera, my friend, has asked a question on capital gains tax. I'll just address it briefly before, we close today. And I'll also take it offline with her as well. First of all, to address that issue on capital gains tax, she's asking, her question is, let me find that question again. Where is that chat box? Where is the chat again? Sorry. Who can read that question for me? I'm looking for okay, yeah, sorry. Please, I have a question with reference to section 31, subsection 3 of capital gains tax. I sold an investment property in January this year and plans to invest. When do I need to pay my capital gains tax? When does my rollover relief expire? And I'm going to answer that question from 2 years apart. One is from a circular in 2021 by FIRS, and one from 2023 Finance Act. So from 2021, this section 24. Now let me just go down and look at it again. Dimensions, yes, 24F. So as in you have to, give me a second. You have within 6 months or so, to file. If you, 24, section 2 of 4. So if you make a disposal, in January, for example, you have between January, you have by June 30th of that year to file your returns based on that circular. And if you make that sales let's say after June, from July, you have to December, to file your returns. That is based on the circular issued in 2021, I think. So let me look at 2023 finance charges as well. You have within that year of assessment, to reinvest that, proceed. If you must claim your role of relief, you have within that year of assessment to invest that capital gains, or that disposal, if you must claim your role of relief. I'm looking at two different Finance Act now, 2021, 2023 Finance Act. What is there? So like I said, I'll take it off with you offline, but the simple thing that you have within just that same year of assessment, to invest that particular amount for you to get your role of relief. And again, from section 2, section 4 said between January and June, you have to file your capital gains tax. So I'm not giving you a yes answer, because I need to also look at those two acts very well and see if there are things that have changed because of this FVA Finance Act. I'm very careful to make references to a particular one. I like to look at most of all of them and see which of the acts has impact. Because for VAT now, for example, I'm looking at VAT, I need to look at like 2 or 3 finance acts to get a grasp of the entire changes that have happened around VAT. So I don't know if that is okay by you, Vera. Just have that year of assessment to invest that money. So that being said, thank you, Onwuka. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We had a very large turnout today. Please send your questions. I can't see the email address yet. Is it there? Can you all see it? Okay, let me type the email address. See. But we'll start answering questions now. We won't go home. We won't go to work tomorrow. So any final guide and advice for one that would need to create a tax passport? So please, like I said, next week, let's have a proper conversation. I'm seeing tax promas profile here. Yes, these things are possible. Onka will answer these questions, by next week. Let's send these questions to the email address or to the WhatsApp group so that we can take them one by one, arrange the questions. Some questions may lead us to, we may have like 3 questions that could just be one question, in a whole. So we'll just arrange it before next Sunday. So please send in the questions and I will treat them. Any final comments by you, Onka? Any final comments before we end today's session?
Okay, not much. Maybe this other person that needed a guide, but since you say we'll answer it next week, that will not be a problem. Otherwise, we don't know how urgent it is for the person.
Okay, please go ahead with that guide, please.
Okay. For the guide and advice for one that would need to create a tax promise profile is just a simple thing. If already you have a team, what you can do is to go to your tax office where your tax file is domiciled, then get a form, taxpayers update form, fill in the form, provide the email address, your active email address, and of course your phone number. That tax promise page will be created for you, and your login details will be sent to that email address. So with that login details, you can actually log in and then access your tax promise page. You can do your filing there. You can do your normal VAT filing if you're already into business, and maybe once your account is due for filing, you can as well file. So it's very simple, something to do. It doesn't require.
Sorry, just hold on a bit. Someone went to FIRS to go and submit commencement letter, and he was asked to come back November 16th or 6th to get the tax promise. Can they do it themselves, or must they go to FIRS office?
No, you can't do it yourself. You must go to FIRS to do your taxpayers update to enable you have your tax promise profile. You can't do it yourself as a taxpayer. No, it's restricted at this point. But the issue of submit your commencement letter and come back, I don't think is that necessary, because once you submit your commencement letter, then that will be your tax promise page will be easily adjusted. Then you just to call up your your profile and then change your commencement date so that you start your filing if you've actually reached that threshold for filing. So I don't think coming back to November would have, I don't know why they asked them to come back to November. It's something they can do without any kind of delay.
Okay, thank you very much. We are 6 minutes behind our time. Thank you very much, everyone that came today. I believe that it was a nice session, and I know you are not angry with me for not stopping him, because the way he was flowing, he had so much to pour out. So I didn't have to stop him again. So next week, come back 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. We'll have our tax clinic again, and we see how we have those conversations. If you have any serious issue that needs to be addressed quickly, send us a chat on WhatsApp. We'll address it. If you're not okay with my answers tonight, please chat me up on WhatsApp. I'll give you more, leads to what could be the possible answers. Thank you, everyone, and do enjoy the rest of the week. Remember to keep pushing. Don't stop. No matter what you face during the week, tell yourself, I can do it, and you will make it. Have a nice evening, and God bless you.